we're back. Welcome to the Smart to Noise Ratio Pro Audio Podcast. I'm your humble host, John Dayton. Sitting right beside me, once again, around the old campfire, your humble co-host, Anthony Kosobucki.
Hey, guys.
Welcome back. This is episode 21. And actually, I was thinking in the car today, this might be a decent spot to, if you're sort of a late comer to the game, haven't had a chance to go through some of the earlier podcasts. We do occasionally meet with a full panel, although a couple of our other regular attendees, one's busy being all engaged and stuff, trying to plan a wedding, and on short notice.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
It's not what you think.
But, so we occasionally get together with more than just the two of us, if you're wondering, and things are a little more orderly then. We'll pass things around and have some...
We don't just wander off into nothing for a while like we usually do.
Although, I was thinking about that too, there is a point to that, whereas as much as I've tried in my life to study things, I don't particularly learn very well, though we were just talking about one digital audio handbook, Principles of Digital Audio, look it up, pretty good, changed my life when I read it in the 90s, changed my life again last night. I read 4 chapters of it, couldn't put it down. But a lot of the stuff that the best stuff that I've learned in my life has just been from listening to other bigger dogs than me jawbone about stuff, and maybe it wasn't a perfectly laid out lesson plan, but you can learn a lot from hearing other guys talk about their techniques, methodologies, philosophy.
Mixing in what you think or sounds good to you.
Yep, and it's not always useful right away. I mean, you could read a little article about something. The problem with little articles, as I'm finding as I'm writing the blog, is if you get too specific, almost nobody cares. And if you get too general, almost nobody cares. So it's one of the reasons we tack on these podcasts. One, just because, we're pretty much always talking about audio anyway.
I actually had the same problem as you last week. I actually started solving problems in my sleep. It's better than a nightmare, but at the same time, I was on vacation, so I feel like I should put in for a couple hours of that.
Yeah, it's funny. I only have 2 kinds of bad dreams. One where there's like something I can't see with big teeth that's going to eat me, and the other one is about being on a concrete job where it gets away from you. But I do frequently dream about being at gigs. Sometimes it's a gig that's coming up. Sometimes just some random dream gig. But I'll be going through channel checks while I slumber. And many, many times have woken up in the morning and in that half-waking state of thought, more sleep than awake, have stumbled onto some solutions for stuff. So anyway, that's why we do what we do. On the blog, we're certainly not trying to be the last word on anything or the authority on anything, just sort of putting out there the ideas that we're thinking about, the philosophy that we're thinking about. And what's awesome is that we have a few commenters who are putting their questions to us, but every once in a while we'll get one who will catch us when we are not thinking or quoting or saying something correctly and set us straight. So it's as much beneficial for us as we write to get our thoughts organized and put them out there for you guys, and occasionally have our thinking tweaked and put into better order. So that's the whole idea and purpose of the thing. And so anyway, Anthony's filling in for me this weekend. I'm going to be gone. Got an out-of-town gig and then a movie shoot when services would normally be this weekend. So Anthony's going to cover one night for me, and our faithful intern is going to cover one day of shooting and then a couple of services. Yep. And standing in the parking lot afterward, kicking stones around, talking about what it would take to put a studio in a house that the church owns nearby. I thought, hey, let's make a decent idea for a podcast. Right. So Rand got the laptop and some firewood, and here we are. Yep. I'm wondering what, actually, this is going to sound like, pretty soon it's going to be too cold to sit out here.
I know.
I'm wondering what the podcasts are going to sound like. I feel like we have this whole go on with the campfire and the crickets.
We'll just throw an RTA mic out here for an hour or so and lay it in the back.
Crickets, I think, will feel out of place, though, in the winter. I don't know if we need, if it's possible to capture the sounds of Western New York winter, or if it would just be plows going by every 15 minutes.
Fire trucks.
Well, anyway, we'll maybe find something interesting to put in the background for our winter podcast. Man, you are pegging it tonight. I'm actually going to roll.
Wow. Good God.
I know it. I'm actually going to roll you down a little bit, brother.
I must be awake.
Wait, or am I pegging it? No, I'm pegging it. Sure, I'm looking at
that's better. That sounds more realistic.
Turn me down, turn you back up. We'll have a little bit of mixing to do later. Not that I ever do much post-production on these folks, especially any enterprising young individual who's interested in
picking up some volunteer
volunteer time mixing and mastering the podcast. I'd be happy more than to send you our tracks so that I don't have to process them. Anyway, get the housekeeping stuff out of the way. You can find the blog at smart2noise.blogspot.com. You can seek us out. Search Smart to Noise. You'll find us on Facebook. You'll find us on Twitter. If you Google us, various things will pop up. So if you're listening and not reading, check out the reading, and we'd love to hear from you. If you've got something you'd like to contribute, be a guest. That's another thing we've done. We haven't in a while. Is did a couple interviews with some studio buds of ours. With some live mixing type guys, and either my friends have been busy or who knows what. I'm sort of almost out of friends who are up to the challenge or aren't already directly involved with the podcast. So if you got a topic you'd love to jawbone about, we talk a fair amount about small and home studio, project studio kind of stuff, live sound everywhere from coffee shops to stadiums.
Yep.
So it's all in there. We try to do a little bit of everything for everybody because that's sort of what we do in our lives. So anyway, we were talking about looking at this little ranch house and thinking what it would take, and me being the carpenter that I am, I want to just kind of pick a round number and say somewhere between $5,000 to $10,000. There's
I think depending on how intricate we get with stuff, we actually build the tunable walls and all that type of stuff.
Oh yeah, the absorption, the diffusion, the pass-through, the windows, the double windows,
right.
Which actually, when I built a studio in my garage, I had a French door that we had just pulled out of a patio remodel. Yeah. Turned that sideways, separated it with some air, got some rubber gasketing in there, and did a pretty good job.
Cool.
Insulating the sound. So anyway, I'm going to try and sort of keep this relevant for other people putting spaces together. And if you've got a space, you're probably going to need to paint, do some stuff to the floors, put some sound dampening on the walls, deadening in it, come up with a window, come up with some wiring, that sort of thing. Just general housekeeping kind of stuff. The space we were daydreaming about was a whole house, so that means, at least one live room, one control room, a vocal booth somewhere, walls that can be hard or soft, or
maybe a couple. If we could work it in, it would be really cool is to have 2 live rooms, one with drums and then another one with a bass and guitar, so we could actually track an entire live session at once, because it seems to be, from what I'm doing, coming out really nice to, at least for a scratch track, get everybody in the same room, they're well rehearsed, lay everything down, because if you got a bass player and a drummer that are really tight, sometimes it's easier for them to click and lock in playing together than to
that's
track.
Where it's going. I think people are starting to return to that ethos. I mean, even if you're not reviving vintage tape and tube gear, people are catching on that, despite the lack of technology and purity of sound, albums from the 50s, 60s, 70s all sounded great because the band was all in one room jamming all together. And even when, like the Beatles working on multi-track stuff, I mean, there was still just such a collaboration and a simultaneous working on the music that's gone when you're tracking the kick drum, and then you go back and you track the hi-hat.
I remember hearing that the first time. This kid that lived about 20 minutes away from me, and his parents were super loaded, so he wanted a studio, so they just decided to give him $25,000, and he built a studio out of their basement. And he's like, "Yeah, I don't like the whole drum tracking method." It's like, "Well, what are you talking about?" He's like, "Well, I don't track everything together. So what I'll do is I'll put a kick drum in front of everybody, or kick drum in front of the drummer, and I'll play kick drum, and then I'll put the snare, and then I'll put the hi-hat in. And I feel like no matter how good the drummer is, you lose some fluidity with that. Like, there's stuff that if you're going to do a nice, like, as much as I don't like him, Phil Collins drum fill, it's not going to sound right if you're tracking one tom at a time. It's just not.
Even if you have a good player, I mean, I suppose it's not out of the question that somebody could still get their timing on there. But the fact of the matter is, most musicians aren't world class. So if you're working for the guys up the street, you want to create that vibe. Like, they went into a practice space because they like jamming together, and they go on to a stage because they like jamming together and reacting to a crowd. So I love the idea of 2 live rooms, whether it's a big one, a little one, or even if they're both bedroom sized. That gives you all the benefits of laying down the rhythm tracks with, the way you would normally do is put the drummer in a room and then get some other instruments and vocals around to do scratch tracks. That helps, but it's really not the full vibe. But if you can get it so the whole band, the singer's in a booth, guitars are isolated, bass is somewhere, drums are, tucked away, you can get that isolation that you want and that you may or may not, but it's nice to have if you want it. keep the bass out of the drums, keep the guitars out of the vocals, and you might get that magic take and then not have to go back in and overdub.
Right.
Maybe leave some of the grit and the slight mistakes in there because they put life into it and work with it as an organic thing. Yeah. I feel a little wonky using the term organic when I talk about studio stuff, but that's the term people use.
Go and eat some granola or something.
Yeah. So that's the layout, and really, folks, what it came down to is we wanted to, flip through the Sweetwater catalog and daydream about gear. So
it comes down to that thing that we talked about last week, where the most fun part of it is just thinking about it. Yeah. Most fun part. I mean,
window shopping.
Yeah, right? Yeah, like we can do that all day. Like I enjoy coming in. There's a new Musician's Friend or Sweetwater catalog, just to page through and see what's out there and daydream, and then get off my lunch break and go back to work.
Now I thought. We quickly ran the tab for outboard gear, well up over, probably close to 20 grand.
Yep.
just standing in the parking lot. Hadn't gotten to mics or anything else yet.
Right.
But in this fictional studio, there is no console. Pro Tools or Reaper or something else would be the desk, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Some run-of-the-mill A to D conversion, whatever the generic 8 or 16 or 24 in is. Yep. Then we started talking about other pre's, and I'm going to diverge just a little bit. I think I'm going to turn it over. Anthony, I'm sure, can ramble for quite a bit. Mine's going to be short because I'm not that well versed in studio stuff. My thoughts were, you don't need a million things. You don't even need a million plugins. I work in Reaper because I'm broke, and it works good enough. And I use the comp that's in there, and maybe my stuff would be better if I had the Massey stuff and the
Chandler and
all the
API stuff.
But I know how to use a compressor because I'm not busy scrolling through a list and trying to remember which plugin is which. I have a compressor plugin.
Yep.
And I know right where to put it for stuff that I want to do. And, there may be that subtle warmth or something else, or, that certain je ne sais quoi that you might get from, one model of an analog compressor or another. But I think the real important thing is to know your gear. I think the guys that do have a lot of plugins don't have a lot of plugins just to have a lot of plugins. They have them because they know each one of them really well. Right. I actually heard, I'm going to shift to mics real quick. I heard a guy said, it was on Pensado's Place, which is a terrific video blog. You can also listen to just the audio parts, and it works almost as well. I forget who it was, and I'm not going to bother to look it up. You'll have to if you really want to know. But Dave was putting this question to him. Like, all right, studio burns down. You got a vital project to do. You have $1,000 or $2,000, some insanely low number. What do you get? He's like, all right, well, you got to have a computer. You got to have Pro Tools. You got to have some A to D. So like whatever garden variety stuff you can plug in. And Dave's like, all right, so you're $400 from your limit. Then what do you do? And the guy said, well, I'd probably go out and get 4 SM57s. It's like you can work wonders with those things.
Yep. As much as I don't like them, but if you need to.
Well, when you have options.
Right.
But that's the thing. Like we were talking about my snare drum sound tonight. He's like, if you can do this and if you can do that and you can swap this out for that. I'm like, dude, that's 2 57s. One top, one bottom.
Yeah, sorry about that. I forgot.
But it worked, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It sounds good. It's one of those, I got carried away messing around with not new stuff, but stuff I found in the closet when I was tracking drums last week, and I every time I discover something new to me or something that I haven't tried in a while, I get all hyped up about it and try and get other people to do it, and they're like, wow, I had a good idea, you should use this too. And really it's an old idea that everybody else has already done. But I'm only 24, so that's new to me.
There goes that wonderkind, just another notch further away.
Shut it. It's only been a week and a half.
It'll still be impressive. You can work the kid angle until you're about 30. I did anyway. Then the white hair started showing up in my mustache.
Just keep shaving. I'll be all right.
But my thoughts are, it almost doesn't matter what you have. I mean, people make amazing stuff on next to nothing. I mean, you look at recent Foo Fighters stuff. White Stripes stuff is a particular.
Oh, good lord! With what does he play? He plays some old crappy Sears guitar, I think, that he found at a garage sale. Yeah, but that's his sound. When you hear that guitar, you know it's Jack White.
Yep. So my thoughts are, get what you need, and if there is a budget, get all you can. Get more than you can. Buy your second one first. Have options. But really, if you lock me in a room with a $50 USB mic pre, an acoustic guitar, and a kick drum microphone, I will get you a usable track.
Yeah.
Eventually. I might learn something too. I mean, heck, I might go do that and
just try it out. And
start writing articles, get an AKG endorsement.
All right. That'd be especially great for the guys that like slap and beat on the guitars and stuff. That would come out sound really neat.
Yeah, I'm sure you could get something out of it. So anyway, my quick thoughts were: you got your Pro Tools machine, you got a couple of big screen TVs, you got one or two nice pairs of monitors, and I'm thinking, with no desk, what do you need in front of you? You hang TVs on the wall, and you get a keyboard in front of you. Maybe even sit with it on your lap. But you get it so that there's really not anything in front of you, so there's not this big reflective surface of a console there.
Like stuff to distract you.
Yep. Yeah, I don't truck with no studio furniture. Nonsense. I hear about these guys like building consoles and like trying different materials for the faceplate, so you get some diffusion. But I'm saying, if you don't have one, why have a desk? Why deal with the bass trap and the reflectiveness? Like, get your monitors in a good spot, get yourself in a good relationship to them, throw your keyboard on a music stand or an armrest or something, and get to work.
Yep.
And then once you get past your garden variety A to D, we talked about, you'd probably want, I was thinking lunchbox, Anthony was thinking a bigger rack of API stuff, but I'm thinking, for my bare minimum, I want like 2 API pre's, 2 API comps, maybe a pair of API EQs, although I'm just as content to do my EQing in the box. I might even skip the API comps. Like, if I had a pair of API pre's, a pair of Neves, and maybe a pair of SSLs, and then some lower-end stuff.
That's like, pretty much all you need to get a nice, fat, old-school sound.
Yeah, and then some garden variety stuff, like a Pro VLA, a couple channels of Focusrite, and, well, heck, I already own a Joe Meek. Or do you own my Joe Meek?
Well,
or do I own your Joe Meek?
Still says John Dayton's box on the case, or John Dayton owns this box. So
Paul Mitro put that on there.
I think John Dayton does still own that box.
Yeah. I'm going to try and mention that every podcast the same way that you mention your Jewish heritage.
I didn't even have to do this episode. He took care of it for me.
Bada bing. So, that's a fairly long list of pre's. I mean, I think if we really had to cut costs, like, I already own a Joe Meek, so that's going in there. I think for the money, 2 channels of Pro VLA. If I could swing it, 2 channels of Avalon. If I could really swing it, I'd be looking for the API or the Neve or the SSL.
Yeah.
And it'd be awesome to be able to go back and forth between all 3 of those. But I feel like really, you got one good pair of analog pre's.
And honestly, the plug-in version of those, as much as I do like the hardware stuff, there's Waves makes an SSL signature collection and a Jack Joseph Puig, I think, artist collection, which is, the Puig child compressor and some other stuff. And grand total, that would run you about $1,000 for all that stuff. But that's all that Joe uses.
Well, then there's, what is it? There's the Massey stuff, and who makes that one that's like, it's like the old console plug-in?
Oh, the Trident?
Is that what it is? Well, you can get like, an RCA broadcast desk, an old Neve, and an old, maybe an old Trident. I'm not going to be able to remember. But it's not an expensive plug-in.
Yeah.
And you can get, I think, 5 different flavors of vintage console on there. And what's more is, if you want to have your sound be, vintage API pre's on this and Neve pre's on that, and RCA outputs on the 2-bus, you can build a console that either flat out would never exist in real life or would just cost $1 million.
Right. And a big tech salary to keep up on all that stuff.
Right. Keep it running.
Yep.
So there you go. There's the idea for the outboard. And beyond that, I mean, if I could lay my hands on something for not too much, I might have, I really like the Pro VLA. I mean, maybe the big boys in the studios would frown on me for being so in love with such a pedestrian box, but there's a nice tube compressor, and it's just, it's not the greatest in the world, but it's pretty nice and it's smooth.
Yep, and you swap out the tubes to something, because they put cheap generic tubes in there, but you swap it out to something a little bit nicer and higher end. The tubes will set you back maybe $50.
Yeah,
and then rebias it yourself, and there you go, and it sounds smoother, a little bit warmer, not as not as brittle, I guess.
Yep. And then microphones. I mean, for my selection, all you need to do is just listen to the microphone episode. Was that back around episode 12 or 13 or something like that?
Yeah, it was early. Earlier.
I'm a live guy, so I actually like to use just a lot. I'm kind of stuck on dynamic microphones. I know how they behave for the loud stuff anyway. When you get into more sensitive stuff, like I really like a couple different large diaphragm side address mics. Gordon's really big into some tube mics. But again, it's sort of what you've got. Like, I feel like, if you've got a pair of 2-inch condensers and a pair of 1-inch condensers and a handful of different pencil condensers and a handful of different dynamic mics, I mean, with fewer than 20 mics, you can go a lot of places.
And what's nice about some of the, even more entry-level stuff, like the pair of KSM 44s that I have are multi-use. So you can switch in between Omni, Figure 8, and cardioid, so that, like, it doesn't replace, but it really kind of compensates for the fact that I don't have a really great Figure 8 mic or a great Omni mic. Like, I can switch stuff around, and one of my favorite sounds I've ever gotten was behind a Leslie cabinet, behind the spinning rotating horns, setting the Figure 8 mic up sideways. Ooh. And it, like, there's, I've heard guys say, you need to put one on each horn, or put one in the middle and then throw one, or put two on and then throw one out of phase and all that stuff. I've got just a fantastic, the real flutter sound. Like, you can actually hear the air moving a little bit with it, with just that. And then I'll take that right off and stick it on a vocal stand, and then go back later and track my guitar with it, and then go back later and track vocals with it. So they're expensive when they came out. They're probably about $850, but if I can track 3/4 of my stuff with just those two microphones, that opens up a whole world of other money that you could put somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. So there you have it. There's my side of it. I'm sure Anth has got some ideas that he's been just. Go ahead and go there. I said way more than I intended to.
Keeping under the $1,000 is, like, I had the nice option of when I started work. They had 28 live channels in for me, so they're 2 RME Octomic Ds, and the RME Fireface, which I've actually seen in a lot of decent-sized studios. The converters are really fantastic on it. There's a spot for your word clock and a lot of stuff in, front controllable panel. The only thing I don't like about it is on the back, the 8 analog ins are only TRS. They're not, the universal in-outs, which kind of stinks for me. But
we could cut that up for you.
Right. But still, it's great because we were running Aviom outs into that first 8 and all that stuff. But I think if starting from scratch, just for monetary sake, I think I was looking at Focusrite Liquid Sapphire 56, which is 28 in and out, and I'm sure I didn't look at the back panel, but I'm sure that's, 2 8-ats in.
Yeah, some trickery.
But there are 10 actual Focusrite pre's in that. So that, that would about do it for if I couldn't get other outboard pre's. Like, the Focusrite pre's are great. They sound warm, they're clean. What I've been really surprised with that little junky 8i6 that I've got, I can make them clip and they sound good. I'm not used to doing anything digital. It just, you
must have some soft limiting in there.
Yeah, if you get anywhere within, a dB or 2 of clipping, it just starts sounding like piss real quick. So I'd probably go with that. And because with the rare exception of you actually getting a chance to track an entire live band, I really can't see, unless you go super crazy with drum miking. I think I maxed out at 12 mics on a drum kit once, and stuff was overkill. Like, I didn't use the ride microphone. I didn't really use the hi-hat mic because it was bleeding into the snare and the overheads. The tom mics were nice, but I didn't use them a whole lot. I got enough out of the overheads. So even if I just had that, I think it's just 12 or 16 straight in on that, plus the SPDIF and stuff. I'd love to have that. And I think what we talked about, too, and we didn't mention, was a pair of distressors.
Oh, yes.
Because those, if I had the extra $3,000 to burn, that would absolutely be the first thing that I bought right now for my studio. Because I've got a microphone setup that I'm fairly happy with. I'd like to get some different tom mics. The Audix stuff is good, but I'd really like, a set of 421s for my toms. Maybe get an RE20 and mess around with that a little bit for floor tom or kick drum. But But there's, I mean, with the stuff that I've got and the stuff that they bought, I think altogether ran me about $10,000 for everything. And I found an old snake and put new ends on it and used that for wire and stuff, and bought a spool of mic cable and made all my own lines. So for, I guess, grand total under $12,000, I've come out with something that I'm pretty happy with.
Mm-hmm. And the material coming out's good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the tracks coming out of that studio.
Like when I first started, I was a little bit confused because we were using Samplitude, and that it wasn't a hard program to use. It didn't sound that great, and it was on a PC that moves slower than dirt, so it was a little rough to get going on that. That we got Logic, and then recently I got Pro Tools, and that's kind of opened up a whole new window for me, mixing wise and engineering wise. It's going back and working in Logic is kind of like going back and using an easy bake oven. It's just, it seems, there's perfectly good stuff using Logic.
It's not for, like, they've added live audio capability to it, but it's not for that. It's
for electronic music, and that's totally fine. And there's, I think, Dark Horse Studios. I've heard rumors of them actually using that as their main DAW. Mm-hmm. But
people do. I mean, it's not impossible, and if that's the environment somebody's comfortable in, but like my boss has Logic on his machine because he does that. He does arranging. Like, he's pulling MIDI tracks and audio tracks and stuff in.
And it'll print the MIDI, like actually print the sheet music out for you on MIDI, which is, I don't know if there's a function in Pro Tools for that. I haven't found it yet, but if there is. But it's really convenient. Like, I did a live session with Ed, and he's like, hey, could you run the MIDI for this? I want to print out the tracks and put it up online. So I was able to do that and save it all as a PDF and ship it out to him. And it's perfectly notated, even with pedal markings.
Yep, and it's great for that. Like, he keeps offering it to me. He's like, I've got Logic right here. You can check it out. I'm like, yeah. Like, I've heard enough people talk about it over the years, and it's like, I work in a purely audio environment. I personally believe MIDI is from the deepest pit of hell. I don't like it, and I believe it's of the devil.
If you've got good musicians, but especially like the great thing with Logic for me was, the sounds are pretty good, and then you can rerun it through another module, run it back into a keyboard, and then get that sound out.
Yeah, like, it's definitely got its place, just not on the stuff that I tend to work on.
Right. That I had to correct lots of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just as easy as just dragging the tail or the...
Yep. And they have done a lot to it. Like, they really enabled a lot of digital audio capability in it. But, it's made for the loopers and the beat builders and the composers and arrangers. That's the heart of that program.
Right.
So that's why I haven't pursued it too much. And you've heard Anthony talk about it ever since you got PT10.
I forgot that all of my band stuff was in Logic, and it's an album's worth of material that's all pretty much mixed down. I just need to drop vocals on it. So I don't want to go and start from scratch and reset all my plugins and all that stuff. Like, it sounds good where it's at.
Well, you should just print stems and finish it in Pro Tools.
Yeah. I'm supposed to get it done by October, though.
and a hush fell over the crowd.
Oh, new ideas. But yeah, like, coming from, like, I started in live audio, so for me, Pro Tools functions better. Like, it's a little bit more, it works better inside my head than Logic did, just off the bat. So, yeah.
Lull. Actually, while there is a lull here, we brought it up at my rehearsal tonight. I told Anth a while ago that all the studio guys swear by D112s. I was wrong, and they were actually talking about the original D12.
It looks like a little cube on a stick.
Yep, the first little box mic. I think it was really about the first actual
kick mic.
Yeah, kick mic. But they're discontinued. They're hard to get because people who know have all bought them.
Right.
So there's a reissue out. And I haven't really heard any reports back of it in the wild yet. Like, I was clicking around last night just looking for somebody who had used it, and everybody's blog post was just regurgitating the corporate propaganda. But the neat thing about it is it's a dynamic kick mic or bass mic, updated diaphragm, volume handling capabilities, high SBLs and all that stuff, great frequency response, but... He paused dramatically, ... You turn the phantom power on, and then you've got 3 active filters on board on the mic. So
that's a pretty cool function to actually have it. Because, I mean, I don't think I've ever used a condenser mic that you turn the power off, and it's useful.
Well, it's not. It's a dynamic mic.
Oh,
so you can run it.
It's okay.
You can run it with no phantom and still get great signal. But if you kick the phantom on, it pops these filters into the chain that you can select, and I don't know how much. It may just be simple as low
like
cut, contour, pat, whatever. But they're active filters, so it should be pretty clean, pretty nice. So if you have one,
or AKG is listening, we'd love to demo something.
Yeah,
for
absolutely. I'd write all about it. I got kick drum woes like you wouldn't believe.
How many compressors and gates can you insert on one drum? And then John's got more.
Yeah. Well, it's only because I have so many different players. I have the same kit and the same mics every week. But I was actually talking to my boss about it. It's amazing how much different the kit sounds. We had an outside band come in, and the kit sounded totally different. And I think he noticed because he was, not on stage for a change. He was out in the house. Well, actually, he'd actually been off. I don't think he's actually been leading from the stage for. It had been about 5 weeks at that point. For one reason or another, this group came in, that group came in, whatever. He was on vacation. So he got to listen from the house a bunch, heard our guys play, heard this guy play. And I don't know, I think part of it might be just a difference in age, for one, although we do have a couple younger drummers. But the kit just sounds different for different guys. I mean, you can tell who's sitting on the kit. Like, with my eyes closed, from one kick drum hit, I can tell you who's sitting there.
Those toms sounded great tonight. I think that's one of the first times I've heard those 604s sound not like a 604.
Yep, and the thing about that kit and the heads that are on it and those mics is they're way better when you just mash them.
Yeah.
And I've got a couple drummers who are definitely... I mean, it's not an age thing. I think it's just a style thing. They're a little bit...
You got guys that grow up listening to the Beatles and the Rolling Stones as opposed to guys that grow up listening to Megadeth.
Yeah, I don't want to say jazzy, but yeah, like there's more touch involved to it and dynamics. And I've told them, like, okay, when you stop in a song and the director will talk to people about stuff, and I'll say, hey man, on that fill, don't baby it. Like, I know there's not a lot else going around. Like, I'll turn it down if it's too loud, but don't be afraid to mash those puppies because they sound good mashed.
Yep.
I mean, actually, the heads by schedule needed to be changed about 3 months ago, but the more people lay into them, the more I like them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we never...
Oh, the points, whatever.
Okay.
I'll get them later.
Get back to it. So where did we leave off? We were talking about the D12. Okay. back to the imaginary studio.
So I think we covered pre's, like the distressors are...
those are really a must-have. I left them off my list, but I would cross off a large number of items if it meant having a pair of distressors.
Right, and if you got I know a lot of guys have their preferred. Like, I would really love to have a Neve channel strip on the kick drum because they make the kick drum come through nicer. Just on the in mic, or I'm sorry, on the out mic. They just seem to have a lot more warmth in the low end. They're really good for kick drum and bass guitar. Maybe some of the API stuff for snare, but for the overheads, I'm really happy with just turning the compressors off and using the Joe Meek channel strips. Everything's really clear, and you can EQ stuff later down if you need to. But if your mic placement's right, you really don't need a whole ton of it.
Are you going in through the transformers or through the?
Oh yeah. I've got the iron on. Which is, that's the nice thing about it is you can do it, the Joe Meek, you can engage or disengage the transformer in it. So for different sounds, I think there's one thing, I think, or actually what I'll do is I'll run bass and then I'll split it and run one with the transformer and one without. And then blend a clean signal without the transformer into the Sans amp plug-in in Pro Tools and then use my little DI, my MXR DI through the transformered one. And then kind of blend the two to get a gritty and a more smooth sound.
Uh-huh.
But even, some of the multi-purpose stuff like the Joe Meek or even the Avalon, even if you got stuff off, just run it through stuff for color. A lot of what I've noticed is a lot of the newer, kids recording stuff in their basement want to sound as clean as possible. And, I want everything to sound like a sample. And we've got a buddy that, at least for a while, was, I think what are they, the little drum triggers. And he was just replacing everything. And his drums came out sounding great, but they all sounded the same. Like, there wasn't a difference in the way the kit sounded. And, if you're only doing one style of music, only for a few bands, it sounds great. But sometimes, like, I'm really digging people coming in with different kits and different heads on their kits, and drummers that know, well, for this kind of stuff, maybe I only want a single ply head on my toms instead of a double ply, because I'm not going to be hitting them as hard. I'm going to use brushes. I want a little more definition, is not as much thud. So
I got to put the brakes on.
Yeah.
You just brought up something that reminded me of something.
Okay.
Brushes. I was tired of listening to Volbeat, which I didn't think would ever happen. Tired of listening to Testament and all the other headbanging stuff that I put on. I don't listen to a ton of music, but when I do, it's thrash, generally. So I was like, all right, I'm supposed to be broadening my horizons here. Popped up Pandora, clicked on the first thing I saw. It was the Cool Jazz channel. Listened to 20 songs that I've never heard before in my life. And, some guitar stuff, some organ stuff, which is amazing.
Anything with organ's good, if it's a good organ player.
And I was surprised, because what I heard was, a lot of it was just brush playing on the snare, very minimal kit, but I liked it. And that's the thing that I never realized it before, but that's why, I turn on, public radio around here, NPR is, those stations that aren't all talk. That's where you find, the classical and the jazz and the blues and stuff. And, I turn it on during the jazz hour at night, driving home sometimes, and I'm like, I listen to 3 songs, and I'm like, turn it off. And I realize what it is the modern guys, for some reason, when they're tracking stuff, are just going bonkers with their overheads. They're trying to do that 1 or 2 mic drum sound with a mic that's almost too good, or they're putting too much hype on it or something, because I just feel like listening to that stuff, it's like the brush show.
Yeah.
So, I listen to, whatever little swirly, you can hear...
just the fanning and the sizzles of it.
Well, you hear that, but then, the mics are picking up so much that, you hear it coming back off the wall and flanging with itself.
I actually did that. I mic'd a wall.
I love that.
Not on purpose, but I couldn't hear the drummer because I switched to small diaphragm overheads, just because it was a more low key. Everything that he's been doing is more R&B rock type stuff, and for these couple songs, I really want it to be more laid back. I want it to be string driven and pads and stuff. So I don't want a huge drum sound. I was like, all right, well, let's try out some different stuff. And I couldn't hear him at all, so I stuck one of the KSM 44s on a stand next to him for him to shout at when he wasn't tracking, if he needed, more or less of something in his ears or wanted to retake something. And accidentally left it on for probably the whole session, and it was pointed actually at a corner that I've got a blanket at about a 40, or I'm sorry, not a 45 degree angle, just kitty cornering off that corner. And when I first started tracking, I just forgot to mute the mic, and it was record enabled, so it went through and recorded everything. And I wasn't digging the drum sound too much. It was shoved all the way over at the end of my my mix window, so I didn't realize that it was on. So once I pulled that down, I actually ended up mixing probably about to minus 20, minus 15 back in, because there was this cool kind of ambient, dark back alley jazz sound to it. And it came out really good. When it came out super hot, we had a little sizzle that I MacGyvered off of a cabasa, tied some fishing line to, and snapped it onto a crash cymbal. So he would play that a little bit. He was playing the whole kit with brushes. And in the studio, if it's something that comes up where someone wants to play with brushes, make sure the snare head is fresh. So if there's no texture on that snare drum, it just kind of sounds a little bit funny. So when you put that fresh snare on, you can actually feel the grit on it is really what you need to make sure is there for brushes. So that mixed back in with just a touch of that room mic that was pointed at a corner that sounded horrendous, because that sizzle would just go on for, no joke, about 25 seconds because it was up so hot. But once I mixed it down, it added this, again, really cool back alley, dirty jazz sound in, which when he came in and listened to his tracks, he was really digging it. So instead of just wiping the whole channel clean, we kept it. And I just mixed it down so I wasn't annoyed to hell with that sizzle that just wouldn't die.
And I was thinking about monitors, too. My wife just called.
Oh, yeah.
Kids are all right.
Oh, that's good. Nobody's filling up Olive Garden containers anymore.
That was Brian's kids.
I kind of want to keep Olive Garden containers around all the time just for that.
Long story that we won't get into. But yeah, we talked about monitoring a little bit, and Anth has a pair of Atom A7s.
A7Xs. They're the new ones that have 2 bass ports on the bottom and the controls in the front. I think the old ones only had 1 bass port and the controls were in the back.
And the highs are ribbons on those?
Yep, yeah, they're ribbon tweeters. So
oh, baby.
They're, your ears don't get as tired. Like, don't get me wrong. If you're sitting in there for 6 hours at a time and you're not listening real loud and you go out into another room and start talking to people, you're going to notice for sure. I had the misfortune of not being able to leave my studio for 8 hours and having to track, edit, mix down, and slightly master a CD. And oh God, did it sound bad. It was just, there was nothing but organ in that sucker. And the organ sounded good. It was just, you couldn't hear the words. So, I mean, those, for the money, I had a pair of KRK E8s, and then swapped out for E8Ts, which are the ones, I think, with a titanium tweeter in them, and they sounded okay. There's the KRK mid-range I found is just a little bit wonky. If you're in a room that allows it, then it's good. I know there's I think the biggest and nicest studio around here actually has a pair of, they're discontinued now, but KRK V8s and a pair of NS10s, and that's the use for monitoring. So if you're used to them and you tune the room right, they're okay. But for the money, I think the E8s were something around like $2,000 a piece or more. These little Adams A7Xs, I think, were $600 or $700 a piece, so under $1,500 for the pair of them. And they're not actually 7-inch speakers. I think they're 6.5 or 6 1/4, but they've actually got some decent bass response to them.
Oh, yeah. Well, especially the way you jammed in there in your control room.
Right off of 2 corners and into this couch in the back wall, it just sounds like you're in a bass hub. But I've found a work around that. But for that kind of money, I haven't, I've test-driven a bunch of other stuff, and those are really what's come out on top. They're the smoothest, at least.
Yep. And I think maybe for, like those for near fields, and I might want to hear... I haven't heard tannoys in a while, but when I used to be in different studios, I was always...
Some of those are some B&W big boys in the back.
Yep. Something when you really need to make it pound.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's actually...
That and maybe Adams makes, I think, a little 10-inch front firing sub that we could throw in there. I think that's about $1,200.
Uh-huh.
So that might be at least a nice addition, depending on this theoretical studio, what the room's looking like and what we can do for treatment. But it might be nice to have, just to work and mess around with stuff and see, if it helps out and cleans up.
Yeah. And I just realized that I have a bad cable on this mic, so I'm probably going to have to do a significant amount of editing to get all the pops out from it one-legging. So if I disappeared...
Sorry.
Anyway. I'm suddenly very tired. I've woken up the laptop 3 times to see how much time we...
How much time do we have left?
We got like 20 minutes left, easy.
Wow.
25. We're only a little past the halfway.
Maybe you want to get into, if we had, say, an extra $8 to $10,000 to blow on mics, what would we do for vocal mics, drum mics? Let's start with drums and I guess build up maybe. So I think we've done this before, like what we would like to have, but maybe just a quick overview.
All right. I feel like... All right, I'll do this as quick as I can, and then I'll let you make any additions or subtractions as we go. Like for drums, my ideal setup, and again, I'm a live guy, so take this with a grain of salt. I'm looking for probably a Beta 52, an SM91.
If you can find an SM91.
Are they getting rare or something?
Oh, yeah. Well, they stopped making the SM91. Now it's all Beta 91.
Oh, right.
Now they've got a Beta 91A. So
well, or a Crown or some kind of PZM in there. Right. I'm not picky. 57 on the snare top. I don't care what on the bottom. A 57, an 81, an I5.
Yep.
If I'm going to mic ride and hi-hat individually, I'm thinking 81s on both of those in most cases. Overheads, I really like AKG 430s. Look for little pencil mics. For something larger diaphragm, I don't even know. Like
the AKG 414s are really nice.
Yeah, those are maybe 3000s. And on the toms, I don't mind the D2, D4, maybe even D6 setup for those. So that's my kit. What's yours look like?
I think I'd definitely like to have, at least for some variety, do the Beta 52, Beta 91, maybe get an SM57 for the back for the beater. an RE20 in there maybe, and then just to have, if we could find an old D12 or even a D112 for some jazz stuff isn't bad. Snare.
I actually used an RE20 for a drum overhead on a festival stage once.
What a waste.
That's all I had. How was it?
$400 for overheads and $100 on the rest of the
It's the only mic left in the box.
That, and then for the snare, do 57 top or a I5 top. And then I'm really digging that strap and a pencil mic to that. So AKG C451 or 81. And then for underneath, either the 451 or an 81. Hi-hat, probably an 81 or the 451. Toms, if money wasn't an option, get 421s. For overheads, probably the 414s, or going way out of budget range, get some U87s. Spent $6,000 on those. And I think, well, if the room was good, maybe get a couple ribbon mics and spread those out. Get a couple Royer 121s.
Royer. Oh, yeah, I'd forgotten about room mics.
Yeah.
Again, I'm a big proponent of whatever's left in the box. I mean, if it's an MXL large diaphragm or...
I've got that Bear Dynamic omnidirectional that I put a cushion behind. And,
there you go.
It's got a neat sound to it. It's not great for everything, but...
A lav mic?
Yeah, just tape something to the ceiling maybe, point it at it.
All right. Bass isn't too tricky. I'd keep probably a D112 on hand, a 57... maybe a small diaphragm condenser, like a pencil mic for room sound.
I think the Bear mics are really good for that. Bear Dynamic.
Yeah.
Little small guys are nice. You keep, a nice DI around. If you can get a Sansamp or a Radial J48 is good for that.
Yep. And then the old tried and true Whirlwind Director, the Jensen transformer that's in that little puppy is worth its weight in something.
Probably more than worth its weight in something. Maybe not gold, but close.
Well, they're expensive anyway. I mean, you buy a $50 DI. I was going to try and build one on my own, and that same Jensen transformer is $80 by itself. I mean, Whirlwind buys them by the train car, so.
Right? So it's not that big of a deal, but.
But yeah, don't turn your nose up at the you see them everywhere. They're all usually in a club. They're all beat up, so there's you can't even see the name on it anymore. But
but they sound good.
It's got a heart of gold,
right? And that's the thing. They can get beat up, and you can beat the living hell out of them for a while, and they still work.
Yeah, there's nothing to them. Whereas if you've got a Countryman Active or a Radial Active or something like that, there's stuff in there.
Be a little careful with them.
Yeah. And then whatever for DIs. You always got to have DIs because even though everybody's got an Ampeg, something that Ampeg has never really sorted out well is
any bass company, like even the Trace Alley or the GK stuff or even the Eden stuff, like the direct out doesn't work right. They go real quick. They don't put a whole lot of money into them.
Yeah, and it's not that they don't sound good because they do usually out of the box, but yeah, they just more often than not.
The more
I walk up on stage and the guy's like, "You got to use a DI." Fair enough. Moving on to guitars. Live, you've heard me talk many a time about my preferred technique. I love a 57 and a 609, which is actually, those are both close mic'd, and my technique is a little different from like when Bobby Ozinski or somebody writes the How to Mic Guitar Cabs article. I never see a configuration like in there. I actually feel like in the studio, if you're taking your time, and especially if you're going to be multi-tracking guitars, doubling, tripling, quintupling, whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like you only want one mic on there, and if I had to pick, it's probably going to be like a 609 or what is it,
906?
6, yeah, the other one.
The nicer one with all the filters and stuff.
Or the tried and true 57.
Yep.
It's not the go-to mic for that purpose for no reason for half a century.
And if you run it through, the day I struck gold with guitar miking was I was sitting in the studio and I had one of my friends who let me borrow his Avalon 737 SP, and he's like, "Oh, I threw the manual in there." I was like, "Psh, manual? It's a compressor. What are you talking about?" So after a while I was like, well, I got time on lunch break, so I read through. I was like, oh, they've got settings in here. So I was like, let's try it out. Set it to almost exactly what the manual had it set in, and they said plug a dynamic mic in and play. So I did. I was like, well, the Avalon makes everything else sound good, so let's put a 57 on it. Track through one song, listen back to it, and went and I retracked half of an album.
Changed his life.
In the next 3 hours, like, wow, It's a really good mic when you're running through something that's not just a digital pre.
Yeah.
It sounded gorgeous. It just sounded warm and full, and it got, nothing special miking technique. Like I put it a little bit off the cone and angled it in. Just tossed out, the Shure KSM-44 just got muted. I didn't need it. It just cut through, and then I would retrack and track over it, so it sounded fatter, and double tracked it with that. Panned it a little bit, and it sounded gorgeous.
Yep. So yeah, for guitars, I mean, you could just do so much with cheap mics, but I think if there was one spot where I was going to really invest, that might be the point where I would maybe cross a few things off to have a Neumann or a really nice Sony for the room mic.
Yeah.
Probably also a ribbon mic of some sort for when I would just want that down and dirty sound.
The KSM 353, I think it is. It's the black with a red grill. And it sounds really, really gorgeous on guitar, and you can use it as a close mic too, which is nice.
But yeah, having that large diaphragm condenser option, or that ribbon mic option for a room sound, and when I say room, I mean anywhere from 24 inches to 24 feet away from the mic.
And don't forget to set that delay right. That's going to be a mess.
Well, or not, or let it go. I mean, some of my favorite guitar sounds from the 80s they just sound like they were recorded in the bathroom. In a tight, reflective room, like an 8x10 room with hard walls, and you whether it's bleeding back in through close mics or there was a specific room mic, I'm really fond of that sound. Like there's just something skanky.
It's real natural and like just more rock and roll almost.
Yeah, or if you're going for like that, like a dub feel or a ska feel, punk feel,
you want that nasty.
You can make it sound lonely. You can make it sound hot.
Yeah.
It's actually Mick Mars's stuff. Some of my favorite Motley Crue guitar sounds have that real snappy,
all
reflective
over,
room sound from coming off room mics. And Stevie Ray Vaughan stuff too. I mean, it's tough because you only ever hear his stuff on the radio. But man, if you can sit down with a Stevie Ray Vaughan CD, or better yet, some vinyl, in a place with some really nice home speakers, like some big towers,
some old Panasonic thrusters.
Yeah,
I've got a pair of those.
A moment of silence. Or even your dad's old Pioneer, from his college days, because in the 70s it was a big deal. Like everybody was trying to have the best reproduction they could afford at home. Get on a good system. Doesn't necessarily have to be tube, but it wouldn't hurt. But I mean, the first time I heard, I'm not gonna be able to remember the name of the song. Oh, Couldn't Stand the Weather.
Yeah.
Where it's got just a real extensive, it starts with a couple real wound out guitar licks, and then the band just vamps forever, and then eventually he gets around to doing the song.
Singing, yeah.
I tell you, the first time I heard that on good speakers, it was just in somebody's living room, but he had a killer Pioneer system from the 70s, had just had it retubed, and I mean, I could tell you what poster was on the walls. I mean, I could hear every nail in the paneling, and it was just amazing. It was one of those incredible moments where, like, audiophiles talk, these guys with $100,000 home stereo setups and levitating turntables and whatnot, they talk about those moments where the speakers disappear and you're just there. And I've had a few of those moments in the studio, but
even in my cheap Shure, they don't make them anymore, like the E2 earbuds. The first time I listened to Stevie Ray Vaughan's version of Little Wing was fantastic, because there's a point in it where it just comes down and you can hear the buzz of the amp.
Yep.
You don't hear that anymore.
No.
You never hear buzz. You never hear anything.
Out.
But it sounded like he plugged it in a hallway and just let it rip. And literally one of my favorite parts in the song is when everything stops and he just hits one little lick and lets it ring out, and then it dies, and you can hear the buzz of the amp, and you can hear him refinger the next chord that he's going to play.
I know that spot. I know that spot.
That's music. Like
I'm gonna lay some wisdom on here. I'm not responsible for either one of these sayings, so I'm not gonna try and make it sound like I'm that smooth. But two things that I've heard said, and I wholeheartedly believe, and I sometimes do say them when I'm showing off like I made them up. But Stevie Ray Vaughan, to pump him up a little bit, that guy could say more with two notes than Paganini could say with a dump truck full.
Yep.
And what I was talking about, hearing that one time I heard Couldn't Stand the Weather, and we also listened to most of the first Boston record on these speakers. I mean, I was hearing stuff that I hadn't even heard in headphones before. And these audiophiles will talk about, moments when the speakers disappear and it's just the music. But I've had a couple of moments where I disappear And I only just recently heard that phrase, and that totally quantifies it. Like, I stopped being one, which is hard for me to like stop being that guy that's analyzing the production and just be listening to music. So that's rare enough anyway. But then to go completely beyond that and just completely forget that I'm a person listening to music at all, and I'm just there.
Yep. There have been a few shows that I've been to like that. Like one of them was, I think actually Carl was mixing. It was an Electromat show at Club Infinity. Someone was positive Carl was mixing. But they just came down this point where they, just kept going on this one line of the song. What was the name of the song?
Nobody knows Electromat.
I know. All right. So the name of the song was Last Goodbye. It wasn't the Jeff Buckley song. It was one that they wrote. But it was like one of the few times I've ever, because, as an engineer, you're constantly looking around, looking at the sound guy, be like, hey, are you paying attention to this? Do you know what you're doing? Do you need me to help? I'm not going to help, but I think you should do something about that. But literally just closed my eyes, rolled my head back a bit, and sank in, and stood there for about 3 minutes until the next song kicked in and woke me up. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I live for. Like being able to, even if you're not working on something, just disappear in the music and know that it's something that might even be out of your league to work with. It's that good.
Mm-hmm. Might be a good spot to end it. Mm-hmm. It's only a couple of minutes early, but we got all philosophical. I almost feel like we're in the temple of music, and we would cheapen it to go on with our dirty
technicals,
dirty scrabblings about gear. Well, anyway, hope it's been useful to you. Hope it provoked some thought. Hope it was more interesting than just a couple of guys sitting by a campfire rattling off part numbers of gear.
We didn't even get to anything past electric guitar mics.
What else is there?
Vocals, acoustic guitar, piano, organ, horns.
Eventually, whatever bloated sack of protoplasm is fronting the band is going to shut up, and Eddie Van Halen just gets to play.
That's a good philosophical note to end
on. So coming up, I'm going to have some cool stuff to talk about. I've got another gig with the water coolers, some pretty good singers and actors. It's about the highest level thing I ever get to do, so I'm always pumped about that, and they're always super cool, and the entertainment's really good. We're starting production on a movie, and I'll have some blog posts about that coming up, because I've been prepping it as a series on the blog.
Cool.
Then, what else? We actually have still a fair number of questions. The emails from Germany have finally settled down a little bit, I think, because I stopped responding this week because I've been too busy. But a few of our friends out there, like say hi to Ika and Michael, and I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody. But at any rate, I think it was Ika sat down and gave us about a half a dozen topics to write on, so I'll be getting busy on that on the blog side of things. Had a great, if you're not into cables, it was pretty boring, but we had one question on cables turned into 4 posts and a podcast.
Yep. And another response to that, I think. Or it was Brandon's counted in there.
Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah. I had an engineer friend, a mechanical engineer friend of ours, who's also a heck of a guitar player and home studio guy, contribute a post about quad cables, which was awesome. Prompted me to do a little research. And so yeah, we're trying to keep some variety into it, and answering your questions is a great way for us to do that, because like I say, we're 200 plus posts into it. We've kind of
whittled down all the stuff that we really know inside and out to talk about.
Yep. So if we are going to revisit some topics, we will sort of only do so at your behest. So don't be shy about writing in. We will certainly not make fun of you, because a lot of the stuff we're, despite where we got to in life, we're still figuring a lot of this stuff out for ourselves. So whatever. I do this every blog post. I spend the last 10 minutes gabbing about how I'd love for you to write into us. One interesting thing, I was poking around in the analytics department, looking at the metrics, and we have now been read at least once in every state of the union except, drumroll please,
Dakota.
Yep.
North or south?
I forget. One of the Dakotas. I think we have one read in North Dakota, okay, and we're lacking South Dakota.
Sturgis. We got to get on that.
And maybe Wyoming, too. I forget. 48 or 49 states were read in, which is cool. I never expected that to happen. And apparently 60 countries.
Really?
Are there that many countries?
Oh, yeah.
That shows you what an American I am. The majority of them still, and this is really surprising to me, from Russia, which makes me just think that it's like spam bots.
Trying to sell us Russian brides.
We never hear from the Russians, but we do hear a lot from the Germans. So thanks to them, and we thank them for all the work they're doing, spreading the word about us over there. It's very gratifying to see those hits coming out from Deutschland. The Brits and the Swedes and the Danes are not far behind us. So
Cool.
I don't know how to. Well, I know how to say hello in English. I'm gonna. I'm going to use the opportunity to branch out and learn how to at least make a greeting and a thank you in some different languages. See, we're getting red in Australia a little bit. The Japanese haven't quite picked up on us yet. The Koreans still haven't penetrated that Asian market.
I was going to say, are we allowed in China and North Korea?
I don't know. Radio-free audio something. So, yep, it's that point in the night where we've wound down and we're rambling.
Yep.
So I guess with no further ado, I'm going to reach over, hit the space bar, and cut this one off, and then see how much editing I have to do to cut out all the pops from this bad mic cable. But anyway, thanks again. Thank you so much for listening. You have no idea how much it pumps us up and keeps us going to know that you're out there, because I've said it before and I'll say it again. We are living, breathing, doing, thinking, dreaming audio all the time,
Yep.
and it's still all we talk about. Once in a while, somebody will pipe up about his significant other or sports or something, and we ignore them and continue to think.
The Olympics is over.
The Olympics is over. We ignore them and I watch the Olympics largely as a analysis of pro audio and surround sound mixing, live venue stuff. But yeah, so yeah, if you do talk about something else to us, we'll sort of not pay attention to you and keep thinking about audio until we can start talking about audio again. So that's what we're doing, and it's cool that you think it's cool and are listening in. And we hopefully it's helpful. Hopefully it's more than interesting. Hopefully it's prompting you to take the rudiments that we're putting out here, get on the internet, hit the Googles, hit the Wikipedia, and look up some more interesting stuff. Because Lord knows there are bigger and better dogs than us who are laying it out there for you, dispelling myths, proclaiming truths, laying out techniques. And all right, so I guess that's enough of that. Shoot, I thought of one other thing. Can't remember now. Oh, we got to do a mastering show.
Oh, yeah.
And a drum show.
Yeah, drum show.
It's going to be
get
tough.
Steve out here.
We need to wait. It's probably going to take until the winter. It's going to really need to be the slow season. I'm thinking
go
like
out to Brian's studio and do it there
in January. Yeah, maybe we'll do a field trip. We'll go check out Red Booth Studios, get all our drummer buddies to meet up there. Either that or O'Lacey's is probably too loud. I mean, we could hit our favorite pub in the Batavia area. Might just have to be my living room after the kids go to bed. But
that works.
Whatever it is, we'll find a central location just to prep that one a little bit. By the way, if you're into the idea, let us know, and we'll move it up, get going on it sooner. I've got Anthony here, who is one of I call them drum whisperers, who is a fair player and a great drum tech, great understander of drums and rhythm. I've got my lighting guy, Steve, who is actually a drummer, drum builder, and recorder of drums. We have Pete Metzler, Little Pete, formerly of the semi-famous band The Down to Earth Approach, who grew up nearby. He's a close friend. Terrific drummer, and he's got a lot of stuff to talk about record companies and touring, so we got that angle. My best friend, who is now a DJ. Mm-hmm. Hold your groans before you send in your nasty emails. He's got a really good ear. He's a terrific musician, singer, drummer. He's got a lot to say on the topic. And who else did I think of? Oh, Curly.
Oh, yeah.
Our brother at arms in live sound. Another guy got signed to a label, did a bunch of touring, did a bunch of playing, did a bunch of recording, bunch of not so much building, but piecing together kits and getting them the way he wanted them. So we've got at least, 6, 7 guys.
What if we could get
Steve Patton?
No. Oh. No, that's impossible. Anth Hoisington. Because he plays, too.
He does.
And he's got a lot of...
But he doesn't talk.
Maybe we'll get Tony Hoisington.
Does he play?
That's how they learned how to play. Anthony Chris's first instrument was drums, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we can get the elder statesman of drums on there. So we do have some drum goodness. We got a lot of voices. It'll be a panel show, so it'll be a little less rambly than this. It'll probably be kind of sort of debate style. Like we'll keep throwing out topics and just take answers all the way around and cram in as many as we can. So actually, I'm going to open this up to you. I'm going to even put it on the blog. Let's hear from you guys. What do you want to know about drums? About playing them? About building them? Putting heads on them? Tuning them? The hardware? Cymbals,
resonant frequencies, how you're supposed to tune top and bottom heads, and what a drum's supposed to be at.
The mics, the techniques, the groove, the pocket, the jam, all of that stuff.
I think we could do a whole show about the pocket.
Oh, Lord.
And how some people just really need to stop trying to get in it because they can't.
Yep. Hey, we just ran over time.
Cool.
We stopped 6 minutes early and still ran over.
Yep.
All right. So yeah, it's we're going into a hell week here for me, and when we come back out of it, we'll have some more interesting stuff for you. So do be thinking about what you want to know about drums, and hit us up, and we will see you next time. Thanks for hanging out, guys. We'll see you.
Good night.